The Yuba 5. Some mysteries are full of twists and turns, leaving both the police and the public confused, with more questions than answers. One such unsolved mystery is the case of the Yuba County 5. Picture this. It's 1978. 5 friends, all part of a program for individuals with mental disabilities, leave home to attend a basketball game. After the game, they set out for home, but instead, they head in the wrong direction and vanish. Why did they drive into the mountains? Why did they abandon their car in a snow-filled forest? Months later, only 4 bodies were discovered in a remote area of the Sierra Nevada mountains, miles from their intended route home. What happened to the 5th? Why weren't they found together? Almost 50 years later, the disappearance of the Yuba County 5 remains as baffling as it was in the 1970s. This is the real-life mystery of the Yuba County 5, the men themselves. These weren't strangers. They were a tight-knit group from Yuba City, California, who became close friends despite their individual challenges. Most were in their 20s and 30s. Some had learning disabilities, but they lived independently. They loved sports, hanging out, and going to local events. Bill Sterling, 29, was intellectually disabled and known for his religious convictions and compassion. He often read the Bible to hospital patients and had a close friendship with Jack Madruga. Jack Madruga, 30, was a U.S. Army veteran and one of the few in the group who could drive. He owned a turquoise and white 1969 Mercury Montego, a car he took great pride in. Ted Wire, 32, was friendly and outgoing, worked as a janitor, and was deeply attached to his mother. He was over 6 feet tall, weighed about 200 pounds, and was described as showing signs of autism. Jackie Hewitt, 24, was the youngest of the group. He had a learning disability and unspecified physical and mental disabilities. Shy but sweet-natured and loyal, he often looked to the older members for guidance. Gary Mathias, 25, had a history of psychiatric issues, including schizophrenia, and had been treated in mental health institutions. While serving in the U.S. Army in West Germany, he struggled with drug use and was eventually given a psychiatric discharge. Though he had experienced psychotic episodes, he was reportedly doing well at the time of his disappearance, managing his condition with medication. The disappearance. On February 24, 1978, they piled into Jack Madruga's Mercury Montego for a college basketball game. Seems normal, right? But this trip would end in a nightmare. After the game, they stopped at a convenience store around 10 p.m. to buy snacks. Milk, Hostess pies, and other small items for the ride home. A store clerk later recalled, "They looked happy. 5 guys grabbing snacks." This was the last confirmed sighting of the group alive. But then, they didn't go home. Instead, they drove 70 miles north into the Sierra Nevada mountains. Why? No one knows. And this is where the story gets weird. When the night passed and the parents realized their sons hadn't returned home, they contacted the police. A search was launched, initially under the assumption that the group had either experienced car trouble or lost their way. However, what investigators uncovered in the following days only deepened the mystery in ways no one could have predicted. The abandoned car. A Plumas National Forest ranger reported seeing a Mercury Montego parked along a remote road on February 25th. The car was located near a remote area called Rogers Cow Camp, which was miles off the route the men should have taken to return to Yuba City. Since locals often park there for cross-country skiing, he didn't think much of it. However, when police learned that Madruga owned a Mercury Montego, they went to investigate and found his car. No one could understand why the Yuba County 5 ended up in Plumas, a place their families insisted they had no reason to visit, especially in the harsh winter weather. Adding to the mystery, the keys were missing. Yet, when hot-wired, the car started without issue and still had a quarter tank of gas. Even more perplexing, the undercarriage showed no damage, despite the rugged terrain. suggesting that whoever drove the car was either extremely careful or familiar with the area. The car was discovered over 70 miles northeast of Chico, in the opposite direction of their route home. It was stuck in a snowdrift, with signs that the men had tried to free it. Authorities believed they were physically capable of pushing it out. It was clear that they left the car willingly for some reason. But why would they abandon it in such a remote area in the middle of the night? For 4 months, there were no leads. Then, in June 1978, when the snow began to melt in the mountains, that the first grim discovery was made. On June 4th, a group of motorcyclists stumbled upon a Forest Service trailer in a remote area about 20 miles from where the car had been abandoned. Inside the trailer, searchers found decaying body of Ted Wire. Ted was found wrapped in bed sheets, with frostbitten feet. Investigators determined that he had survived for at least 8 to 13 weeks after the group's disappearance before succumbing to exposure and starvation. What made this even more puzzling was that the hot trailer he was in was stocked with food and had a propane tank. Yet the propane was never used, and very little food had been eaten. Nearby, the remains of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling were discovered about 11 miles from the abandoned car. Their bodies had been partially consumed by animals, and their cause of death was determined to be hypothermia. Later, the remains of Jack Hewitt were found in a nearby area, adding to the growing mystery. The only member of the group who was never found was Gary Mathias, though his shoes and some personal items were discovered near the trailer, leaving unanswered questions about his fate. This cold case is very intriguing because what exactly happened to Yuba County 5 is still a mystery. Nobody could figure it out why they went there. Over time, people has came up with different theories. While discovery of 4 bodies helped close some gaps, many aspects of the remains unexplained. One of the most simple and widely considered theory is that they took a wrong turn and kept going. The group was supposed to drive south from Chico to their home in Yuba City, but their car was found miles in opposite direction, deep in mountains. Jack was a good driver, and he had a very good sense of the direction. This makes the theory of getting lost on their own makes unlikely, but it is possible they may have taken a detour and got lost. Instead of waiting in the car, they went out to look for help, despite being unprepared for the cold and treacherous conditions. It was also suggested that they may have found some other car and were instructed to take a different route. Gary Mathias, a member of the Yuba County 5, had a history of schizophrenia, but had been stable on medication for over 2 years. Some speculate he experienced a mental health crisis, leading the group into the wilderness. However, no evidence suggests he stopped taking his medication or had a psychotic break. His friends were protective of him, and they had successfully navigated past outings. The theory persists largely because Mathias's body was never found. Some believe the group encountered a threat that forced them to leave their car, which was found in working condition but abandoned. While no signs of violence were discovered, speculation remains that they may have been chased or coerced. Joseph Shones, a man who was stranded on the same road that night, reported seeing people around a vehicle but was ignored when he called for help. His account remains unverified, but it adds to the mystery. Ted Wire's body was found in a Forest Service trailer, where he had survived for weeks despite access to food and a heat source. His failure to use available resources suggests confusion or cognitive impairment. The extreme cold and potential dehydration may have worsened their decision-making, preventing them from taking necessary survival actions. The group's close bond and intellectual disabilities may have led to collective fear and poor decision-making. Groupthink could have reinforced irrational choices, such as abandoning the car and trekking into dangerous terrain. The isolated environment and harsh conditions may have amplified their panic, leading to their tragic fate. The mystery of Gary Mathias's fate. Unlike the others, Gary Mathias's body was never recovered, though his shoes and personal items were found near the trailer. One theory suggests he left in search of help but succumbed to the elements, with his body remaining undiscovered. Another possibility is that he survived longer and traveled farther before perishing in the rugged terrain. Some speculate darker scenarios, but no evidence supports foul play or violence. His disappearance remains the case's greatest mystery. So, what do you think happened to the Yuba County Five? Was it a tragic accident or something darker? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you're hooked on mysteries like this, stay curious and stay safe out there.